Hey there, Houda. Andrew here. Sorry for the delay. I didn't see this attached to your email. But let's have a look. Well, I've already had a read through your task 1, and actually I'm quite impressed. One thing, this should be sources of calories, and these don't need to be capitalized. But as for the rest of it, for men from the UK, 3 consecutive periods of their lives. That's great. That's a really nice way of saying that. Oh, and that one. But that's again a very good grammatical construction. Overall, one thing while another thing. Perfectly used. Plural there. The highest source of calories in the first 24 years comes from dairy products. This should be should say of intake here. And this is not quite correct, I'd say. We could even use yet here. Actually, I've just noticed that you run this sentence on. So actually, the under 25s. This group encompasses everyone under the age of 25. So then we have the highest source of calories in the first 24 years comes from dairy products at slightly over 2/4 of intake, and although this number declined throughout the remaining years, it is twice the quantity of meat, vegetables and pulses consumed by the under 25s. That's an incredibly complex description, but based on what you've already written, I think you're capable of applying this sort of length of sentence. So, secondly, over the next 24 years, exactly 50% of calories were from meat, which decreased back to its starting point over the next years. I would say in the subsequent age group. It would be better here to say pulses were, even though we're talking about pulses the group. So we could say the group pulses was this. This just sounds more natural, because when we read pulses, we think of all the pulses. It should be we should stick to 10% of consumption or 10% of intake. Last but not least, in regard, you send regards as a politeness, a courtesy, but you hold regard for something, or you refer to something in regard or with regard. Also, try not to use this sort of stuff. Last but not least, is something that someone would say in a speech at a wedding. It's not for formal writing. So we should start with, in regard to the, we could say the eldest age group. And I would talk about men's preference. Because their needs we can't be aware of from the graph. But we can talk about their preference for calories. I would say here were preferred There we go. So actually your descriptions of data are very good. Your ability to craft longer sentences is impressive, but it does need refining slightly. So pay close attention to where I've edited your longer sentences to get some sense of how to make them more coherent. So these copyright essays, many students struggle with these due to a lack of legal vocabulary. Let's have a look at your word count. Quite high. Let's hope it's all relevant. I would be more specific about this. Rewarding to who and or with what. Maybe be more specific. It is believed by some people that copyright laws may restrain creativity, while others believe that such laws encourage it. So it's better in any question which is essentially asking for your opinion, which this question directly is. It's best to include your opinion in the introduction so that the examiner can see that you have a consistent viewpoint all the way through. So let's see what you believe. So you believe in copyright law. Where shall we put it? I actually think, just to show you what I mean, it would be best to delete this and insert the opinion here. I don't want to reuse protecting. Ooh, actually, we could say limiting theft. So it's always a good idea to state your opinion in the introduction and to provide a very brief explanation of your position. It essentially amounts to just raising the ideas that you're going to discuss below. And as this question specifically states, it's a two-part question, so it's asking you if copyright law encourages or hinders creativity, and whether society would be better off without such rules. So we have to discuss both those things. We have to essentially conclude what we think of both those things, and they both need to be made quite clear in the introduction. The fact that you've answered the whole question should be visible just in this bit. Okay, so firstly, copyright laws certainly do not pose an obstruction. So just on a theme of reducing your word count, and also a core idea in writing is to stay away from talking about what things are not. This is called talking in the negative perspective. And if we talk about what things are not, then it's not very precise, because we could just be describing what it is. So whenever you find yourself saying it does not do something, or it is not this, just clip it out. Let's say even no, actually, people who make a living from creative works. In other words, these rules and regulations prevent, we don't need all, prevent the creative works of artists from being stolen by third parties, but at the same time, it gives the option to allow others to use it with permission. So we've started with copyright laws. So this here actually needs to be the plural. Yeah, and you've carried on with the plural here, these rules and regulations. So they give. For instance, a video containing a famous song loaded on the website YouTube is first checked for infringement before it can be posted online. One sec, this seems a bit long. That's okay. For instance, a video containing a famous song loaded on the website YouTube is first checked for infringement before it can be posted online, and as a result, it gives an option to the rightful owners whether they agree. It really should be to choose, actually. Just to make it sound a bit more natural. It gives an option to the rightful owners to choose whether they agree. I'm still not sure about that, actually. Oh, actually. To choose whether they agree that the video may go public. Works better. I'm just not quite sure whether this follows on from this paragraph well enough. Maybe it would be better here to talk about protecting the income stream of creative people. I suppose this says the same thing though. Maybe I'm being quite pedantic. I'm sure it's fine. Let's move on to the next paragraph. Secondly, no article needed before society. Society would certainly be chaotic without the implementation of such laws. This is because think we would be better. This is because people such as songwriters, painters, poets, and filmmakers we don't need that either. People such as songwriters, painters, poets, and filmmakers need their work to be protected to be able to benefit. It just didn't like the repetition of to be there and there. For example, without the administration of such laws, movies would be copied and shared online for free, leading to a massive decrease in sales, which in turn reduces revenue. Just to sound more natural, this is debatable, but to reduce revenue would be more collocative. It's more of a collocation, which in turn reduces revenue for the producers, and in the long run may result. Let's get rid of that. Any emphasis words in long sentences. And massive might be a bit of an overstatement for this sentence as well. We could say substantial or significant. I like substantial here. I'll leave that in. I was going to remove essentially that bit, so that the laws are necessary and useful for society, but actually for the benefit of our society is good. To sum up, it is important to have copyright laws for ensuring hard-earned rewards, as well as for the protection just that's fine. As well as for the protection of creative works, which is important for society. I would mention a strong society, just so we're answering that second part of the question. But now we are good. Cool. So I'm sorry this is a bit late, but I'll send this over to you now, and I'll correct your next piece as quickly as I possibly can. Have a great day, Houda. Speak later.